Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Whitney Costers, and I have been an English professor for over 20 years. And in that time, I can't even count how many times I've taught a class dedicated exclusively to the short story. Over the years, I have read, analyzed, and taught hundreds of short stories. And so today, I wanted to share 10 essential classics that I truly believe everyone should read before they die. Now, before we jump in, let me ask you, what makes a short story unforgettable? Is it a shocking twist, a deep emotional impact, or something that lingers in your mind long after you finish the reading? For this list, I chose stories based on 4 key criteria. Number 1 was literary influence. Each of these stories shaped literature and inspired generations of writers. Number 2 is thematic depth. Each story explores powerful ideas about human nature, society, or morality. Number 3 is readability. Even though they're classics, these works are engaging and accessible. And number 4 is lasting impact. They stick with you whether they disturb, inspire, or completely change the way you see the world. Also, if you want a deeper dive into any of these stories, I have a full lecture on almost every one of these stories on my channel in which I break down themes, symbolism, and hidden meanings. So be sure to check those out after this video. All right, let's get started. And as we go, let me know in the comments which of these you've read and which ones you think should be on the list. Number 1 is The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. Have you ever read a story that seems totally normal until suddenly it isn't? That's The Lottery. It starts with a small town gathering for an annual tradition, but as the ritual unfolds, the true horror is revealed. This story is a masterclass in building suspense and critiquing blind tradition and mob mentality. If you've read this one, let me know. Did you see the ending coming? Number 2 is A Good Man is Hard to Find by Flannery O'Connor. This one is dark, Southern Gothic at its finest. A quirky family road trip takes a horrifying turn when a family encounters a wanted criminal, and what unfolds is one of the most unsettling endings in short story history. Flannery O'Connor's writing forces us to confront morality, fate, and redemption in ways that make us very uncomfortable. Do you think that the grandmother gets redemption at the end? Let me know your thoughts. Number 3 is The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. This is one of the most unsettling psychological stories ever written. A woman suffering from postpartum depression is confined to a room by her husband and told to rest. But instead of recovering, she starts seeing something trapped in the yellow wallpaper. Is she going mad? Was she already mad? Or is there something sinister lurking in the walls? This story is a powerful feminist critique of how women's mental health was treated in the 19th century, and honestly, parts of it still feel relevant today. If you've read this one, what's your take? Is it a horror story or social commentary? Number 4 is The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. Now, Poe is the king of psychological horror, and The Telltale Heart is proof. It's about a narrator who insists that he's not insane while describing in excruciating detail how he murdered an old man simply because of his vulture eye. But the real horror comes after the murder when guilt takes hold. Poe perfectly captures paranoia and madness, and the unreliable narrator makes the story even creepier. If you love horror, I need to know, what is your favorite Poe story? Number 5 is The Story of an Hour by Kate Chopin. Can a story that's barely 1,000 words change your entire perspective on marriage and freedom? This one can. A woman receives news that her husband has died, and instead of grieving, she feels an overwhelming sense of freedom and joy. But then there's a twist. Chopin's story challenges the traditional expectations of women and was groundbreaking for its time. When you read this one, did you feel sympathy for the main character, or were you just totally shocked? Number 6 is Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut. Imagine a world where everyone is forced to be equal, but at the cost of individuality. That's the premise of Harrison Bergeron, a dystopian satire where the government literally handicaps anyone who's above average. The message is both hilarious and terrifying, and Vonnegut's wit makes it unforgettable. Do you think that this world is too far-fetched, or does it hit a little too close to home? Number 7 is An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge by Ambrose Bierce. This is one of the best twist-ending stories ever written. A Confederate sympathizer is about to be hanged by Union soldiers, but at the last second, something incredible happens. Or does it? Bierce's story plays with time, reality, and perception in ways that feel almost modern. If you've read this one, when did you realize what was actually happening? Number 8 is The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Have you ever had a morning when you wake up and you just don't feel like yourself? Gregor Samsa has the worst version of that. He wakes up one day and realizes he's transformed into this giant insect. But instead of panicking, his first thought is, how am I going to get to work? Kafka's absurd yet deeply philosophical story is about alienation, existential dread, and family obligation. Some say this is a horror story, others call it a dark comedy. What do you think? Number 9 is The Dead by James Joyce. If you love deeply introspective stories that build to one of the most beautifully haunting endings ever written, this is the story for you. The Dead follows Gabriel Conroy at a holiday party reflecting on his life, his relationships, and the passage of time. The final paragraph alone is enough to put this story on the list. If you've read it, let me know. What do you think Joyce is saying about love and memory? And finally, number 10 is A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. This is Southern Gothic at its finest as well. This story follows the reclusive Miss Emily Grierson, a woman trapped in the past and hiding a dark secret in her house. Faulkner plays with a non-linear timeline and an unreliable narrator to create a story that is eerie, tragic, and unforgettable. Did you see the ending coming, or did it completely shock you? There you have it, 10 short stories that I think everyone should read at least once. These stories, like I said earlier, definitely challenge us, disturb us, inspire us, and sometimes completely change the way we see the world. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these have you read? Which ones do you think should be on the list? And don't forget that if you want a full breakdown of any of these stories, I have a lecture on most of them on my channel, so be sure to check those out for a deeper dive. If you found this video helpful, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what is the best short story you've ever read? Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Be well.